Good morning. Mature Simmer here. Late summer here on Misty Hills, and it's a beautiful day. So I've been out this morning checking out the fields. I wanted to verify that on cotton and tobacco I did not need to fertilize. So as you can see, I'm here in the field and I'm good. But the other thing, remember our map looked a little weird? Our field looks a little weird too, and a lot weirder than the map. So, I'm not sure what happened here, but wow. So, we're going to have the crop we're going to have, I guess, but certainly not what I expected, because the previous field had been pretty complete. And it's strange because, like, the headlands are solid. It's just the center and what we kind of planted after we plowed a little bit. So it's like I reset part of the field but broke the rest of it. So I don't know. But anyway, we are at the point where, at least on the coffee fields, I am going to be spraying herbicide today. So we are in the last growth stage. And the other thing I have determined is the tool from Seasons, the MT9, to do all the testing doesn't really work at this point with, I think, precision farming and so forth. If I go out in my field, it tells me my growth state is 0, and I guess I haven't tried it in the cotton field, but anyway, it says my growth state is 0 and my fertilization is like 33%, which is kind of what got me to say I just better make sure everything looks good on the precision farming detail, and it does, so I guess that's what I can do. So I'm going to go ahead and go collect the herbicide sprayer, and I'll be back. Alright, so I am back. Gone ahead and done the headland here. Topped off my herbicide, and we're continuing here. So the one thing that I certainly notice whenever I work the fields at this point, you can see I've got my GPS lines on, or you may be able to see, because other than the side of the field there, they're just flashing on and off here periodically. So, and we can't really tell, we can't see the ground very well with the crop. Coffee's pretty dense when it grows. Well, we've got a server sync going on, so we'll continue talking through that. But no, what I was going to point out is, I've talked with people sometimes that are like, oh, I want to simulate a small farm and the difficulty with finances, so they'll play with finances on hard. We're talking single player here again, where you have control over these things. Obviously in FSN everything's set and locked down so that consistency is maintained. But one of the things they'll talk about is, well, a farmer can't always afford GPS on all their equipment, so you just have to learn how to run without those tools. But this job and these kind of things, I don't know that you can. I mean, not effectively. And some people might say, well, you can go to the mini-map, or you can go to the map and see like where you've applied. Well, first off, herbicide doesn't actually show up on the map other than the weeds are gone. But once again, if you've gotten all the weeds but missed sections, those weeds will still potentially grow back. And even if you can see it, like if you're fertilizing, let's say you're not using precision farming and you're using seasons and you need to do 3 stages of fert and you're into a later growth stage for your last fertilization stage, once again, even going to the map, I'd argue, is you're using automation. I mean, there's some sort of satellite sensors that are updating your map. You know, I don't know how else you'd describe it if you were trying to attach it to real life. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that kind of struck me as you need GPS for this, because there's not really a hope of knowing that you've covered the whole field without it. So, anyway, that's all I had to say. I'm gonna keep working on getting this herbicide done, and hope you guys enjoy the views. You can see, before I jump out, obviously you can see Swede's gone ahead and not only harvested his rye, he's decided to do some straw swaths, and he's baling. So, and he just popped in, as you saw him say hello. So, Hilly Seneca, farmers are waking up this morning, and we're all doing the work that needs to be done. Thanks for tagging along. Running the last pass here on 97, and yeah, you've probably noticed me having to dance around with the sprayer at various times, or take that wide loop around the poles across the street. Then I still had to fold things up anyway. So sprayers are always fun. You know, here I'm obviously having to kind of manually guide the line, my GPS line would get hung up on that tree line. As you can see, it's well within there. So, but I'm getting close to running off the edge here. This field edge is not perfectly straight either, is part of the problem. The crop goes out a row or two at various points, so to not miss anything. I think I missed a little bit up at the top. It's just not worth trying to figure it out, since you can't really see things. So that little bit we'll leave alone. It's not going to have a significant impact. My understanding is the yield impact with seasons and weeds is very localized to where the weeds are, which is why for the longest period of time here on FSN we didn't spray weeds, because they just weren't prevalent enough to justify the time and expense. Because as you've hopefully been able to see with everything I've been showing you, even with a handful of fields here, this keeps you very busy. So if there's anything you can do as a farmer to have less work to do, that's always something we're usually looking for. Again, if you've got significant amounts of time and can spend 4 to 6 hours a day in the servers, you'll probably be okay. But I don't have that luxury, so along with many of the other farmers in FSN, I did not spray weeds for the longest time. So part of what I am trying to determine is the continued learning that goes on with figuring out how to run your farm, which again is fun yet insanely frustrating at the same time. Because on the one hand, there's the challenge of, okay, what am I going to do differently than what I've done in years past to try to get things to be better? And I'm still chasing that with weeds, this being, I think, the third or fourth year that I've been trying to control weeds here on Misty Hills. And so far I've been unsuccessful in doing so with just one application of herbicide. So my attempt this year is late growth stage, and we'll see if that works. The other thing I realized is I didn't fill up before I pulled away, and at this point I guess I'll go ahead and run this pass, and then I'll go get my tanker, and probably has herbicide in it because there's nothing else I run with it, so it might not be that bad because I think the tanker's down here by 30. Otherwise you got to run it up to the silo and fill, but it's just part of the game of farming. Just always moving supplies around. Goodness, I think I will have missed the end of that field. Just so hard to gauge distance and so forth. But yeah, I should have enough here to spray this Headland Pass. But yeah, even with GPS and so forth, yeah, you're trying to gauge how far up to go with one Headland Pass, and obviously I misjudged in the one pass on 97 because, like I said, that you may have seen on the map there was a little bit of pink still showing. Goodness, I drifted again. So there was that one piece of pink showing that obviously I hadn't quite covered it enough up to my Headland Pass. So I think I'm pulling away again. Alright, I think I've done that. So the challenge is now I can try to do a second pass, which I will do, I guess. But I have no great way to tell where my other pass ended. If I end up doing this regularly, I probably just need to do horizontal GPS across the field and at least snap the GPS line and know that I've got things covered. But I do see some weeds sticking out above the crop right there, so I know I definitely wasn't out this far. But the bigger question is, have I stretched out far enough to my right to be overlapping where I was at, or am I just shy and I'm going to have some thin line of weeds again? I don't know. Guess we'll see what it looks like. So obviously filling up from the tanker can't go in the fields at this point without destroying the crop, so I'm going to have to do that at the edge, which means I'm going to have to keep bringing the sprayer back, which is why at this point I am going to leave this here and go get my tanker. So let's see, I think I've got my truck here. So I don't know if you saw the other part, but no, I guess I didn't disconnect, so there you go. perfect example of why you do things before you go, but I think I was assuming, well, I'm going to need to harvest, and so I can leave it connected. I forgot about having to fill up my herbicide. So you can see my tanker's labeled herbicide tanker, and as far as I can tell, it's not like it's required. It's not like, oh, if I put an herbicide tanker on it, I can't put anything else in it. It's just kind of a nice feature that FSN offers for realism. If you haven't seen my store tour of what we've got available to us, and again, what you'd have available if you joined, feel free to jump out. I've tossed the link up there to that video. And you can see a little bit more of the explanation when I talk about the tankers. Too many buttons this morning, or wrong buttons. Oh, that's right, you can't connect hoses on the tanker, but it operates. So yeah, the good news is we have 24,000, almost 25,000 in herbicide in the tank, so this actually isn't bad at all, because I can just go fill it. So, but yeah, there's these tankers and the labels are part of the way FSN has this configured, that we can label them appropriately and utilize them that way, but it doesn't drive any capability that I've seen. So alright, so hopefully I'll be able to fill. Sometimes there's a bit of gamesmanship that we have to go through. Goodness gracious, and it looks like that might be the case, because yeah, it's not letting me fill here. I'm going to back up a little bit, but I don't think that's the issue. Alright, let me see. Can I jump over this? Yes. I thought I was far enough, and I don't know, this may still not. Oh goodness, I'm certainly against the tanker, obviously. But this may still not work. Sometimes you have to go ahead and fold up, and it just gets a bit challenging to fill these things, but let's see. Oh, we're good. Alright, so we're topped off, and we can go back to work. We have to set our line here, but now we have a wide enough headland that I can swing out and avoid this pole, but I'll probably still have to jiggery puff a bit. Maybe not. I don't know. Let's see. Yep, that's out inside the edge. So now the bigger question is, do I think... Yeah, I think with my two passes, if I snap to the line and go, I should be okay, because now it'll, at this point, I'm covering the whole field. Let's see. Doesn't look like I've got anything left that I can cover. There's something that hung over into 90, where probably I had rerun or something at some point where I had overplanted, but so we'll have this going along. My hope is applying herbicide now will keep things from growing, because as you can see, we obviously just harvested the oats the other day on 98, and we've already got weeds sprouting. And the seasons mod is very clear that weeds are quote-unquote planted both at harvest and at seeding. So I have tried doing it right after harvest, but then of course when you seed, it lets you know that you're able to reseed weeds, and so that's obviously a problem. And so that year it didn't work with one application. I think I ended up just not spraying because I didn't have time, and there were less weeds than if I hadn't sprayed at all, but still there were a lot, and I don't know. I mean, there really isn't a way to tell how much yield you've lost, because even if you sprayed one field and didn't spray another and tried to compare, I guess you could try the yield per acre and get down to that level and maybe have some actionable information to make a decision of, is the cost of herbicide, the time, worth it, or do I still just let weeds grow? So, as you can see here, we've got, weeds growing out here for the same reason that as we went over, we overplanted and so forth. So the only way to get rid of that is, once again, at some point, we'll plow that up. The challenge is the edge fields, I think, are not actually sellable fields, even though they are numbered on the FSN maps. But I don't think I've ever seen them come up for sale. Doesn't mean they won't, but... So that, again, given the lack of time, is always one of those chores that's like, when I've got nothing to do, I'll do the housekeeping and tidy up, but that doesn't seem to happen. Because even the one year when I was just trying to get ahead of things from the mayor's standpoint, when we had 2 or 3 FMs leave within a very short period, either because they were inactive or they had just chosen that they had to step away from playing in real life at that point, I had a lot of fields that had obviously been in use, and rather than try to keep up with auctions and plow and make sure the field was ready for whoever was purchasing, I just made the decision I'm going to go ahead and plow all the FSN fields that need it as quickly as I can. It still took 3 in-game years to get done, just finding enough time, and I definitely had to prioritize it over other things in my leisure time in life, because I just basically ended up having to obviously spend more time within FSN because I had many dozens of fields. I think I had to plow like 50 of the fields because there was a lot of things in use. Yeah, see, I think I'm like way over. No, I'm right on top of the weeds, so although I am in a bit. Yeah, it just almost makes it seem like it's not worth worrying about the headland, but obviously I can't turn around if I don't worry about the headlands, so. But I just feel like I'm over-applying the herbicide over places I've already done it, because this happens to not be one of the things that precision farming affects. So there's a weed out at the edge of the arm. Now it's dead. It's no longer pink. So yeah, going back to my experiments with weeds, I think the first year when they came in, because I hadn't been spraying at all, and I've never really used them extensively or worried about them, even if I had them when I played single player. So I just didn't have experience with weeds in the game, and certainly not with weeds in seasons where I was trying to control them. So I thought, well, let me just use the map and I'll spray where I see them. Well, that didn't work, because basically what I found out there is if it kept them from resprouting in the spaces I had sprayed, which I think it may have, at least until, again, I either harvested or seeded, because I think, once again, that was after I had harvested, and then, I took them out and then I seeded, and then things were starting to grow back, and I think it negated anything I had done, just like I found out later when I officially tried to do it that way. But But I tried to spot spray, and that didn't work. And then I tried to spray right after seeding, I think, once, like immediately after, which meant I had to delay fertilization. And I think that may have been before we had precision farming, so that just became problematic anyway. I think I didn't even get my third stage of fertilization down because I didn't have enough time before the crop had gotten to the harvest point. And so yes, I think I've tried it literally everywhere, right after harvest, right after seeding, spot spraying. So this is my at least fourth attempt, which is I'm spraying at late growth stage, and hopefully that keeps them at bay until after I harvest. So what I may do as part of the testing is, if these fields turn ready to harvest tomorrow, which they can according to the seasons map, I just don't know if they will immediately pop that first day or not. I may leave some, as I'm thinking of it, because I don't really have any small fields with coffee, so leaving an entire field still is going to turn into a 2-hour harvest some off day where, again, trying to fit it in my schedule is going to be a challenge. This is just like if I don't do them in blocks, I find I just have a hard time finding the time to do it. So, or I frankly forget, like how we had let the crops wither with the cotton and the tobacco, because I was, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I'm done with harvest, and that was because I had harvested the canola, but because I don't normally mix crops, it just hadn't computed in my head that I had crops in the field until it was too late. Again, I'm hoping I didn't. Alright, there's no pink left behind me, so I think we're okay. But I was hoping I didn't misjudge and start spraying too late. So as I said, it's the challenging and fun, but yet extremely frustrating part of FSN Farming Simulator. Again, it's hard to tell what the cause is of some things, because there's changes to mods and this and that by FSN as well. So, as I said, I've not tried this in single player, so I don't know if weeds are behaving differently here because of some tweaks they may have made than they would if I was in single player doing things this, with a similar process. So, it's a challenge to figure out what works, but then there is that tipping point where you're like, okay, I just want to know what I need to do, and I want to stop having to think so hard and try to figure out how to find that best sweet spot in the game logic and so forth. Because at the end, obviously, the difference between real farming and this is, obviously, this is running on a computer algorithm that runs, and, well, in theory, it could have randomization in there. I don't believe I've ever read or seen anything that they've gone that far, but obviously, with weeds in the real world, like, you could have a stubborn strain one year, and even though what you've done with the herbicide before, suddenly doesn't work. There isn't that level of modeling done in Farming Simulator that I've seen. So the key here is, once I figure out what works, in theory, it should work every time, because the algorithm is the algorithm. So, and my goal is to spray herbicide once, because if I need to spray herbicide twice, I'm really back into the same amount of work and cost that we were before precision farming. Because the benefit of precision farming on the fertilization side is I just need to fertilize the fields once each time, as opposed to do it 3 times. So I don't have to take that time to drive it. The cost is the same because precision farming doesn't per se save you anything. Obviously it does, because it prevents overspray of fertilization and lime. So if you're going over a part of the field that already has it applied, it won't reapply like it does without precision farming. But it's not as if you're using less. It still basically uses what you would in the 3 passes. It just does it at once. So I've got 2 passes over the field at, I think my fertilizer runs at 12 miles per hour. I've got 2 passes over all these fields at 12 miles an hour that I don't need to do. And I could go back to my work time calculator, which I shared in the farm tracker video. So I'll again post a link up to that video here for those who want to go explore that. If you miss that, how do you figure out how much time it's going to take you to work a field? I've got a GPS glitch here where suddenly I'm not locked on the line, but it wouldn't let me. I'm pressing the gas and nothing's happening. So, but yeah, if you want to know how do you figure out how much time is it going to take me to do a particular job, I've got a calculator that I use for that. Alright, so I'm just about finishing up here on 89. And at this point, just to avoid wasted effort, I'm going to top off the sprayer every time. And then that will be better, to avoid suddenly running out in the middle of the field. Because this is a bit smaller, and I've almost used half of my capacity here. So hopefully that discussion helps a little bit. At this point, I don't know that I think I've covered everything I want to cover. So we'll finish off the last 2 fields in time lapse and connect up at the end. So I am complete with the herbicide and the work that needs to be done on that. So we'll get everything folded up and put away. So I'm going to wait on the cotton and tobacco field because they're still not quite at last stage of growth. And I just want to make sure that I'm kind of following the same process. I'm just hopeful that I don't suddenly forget to do it, but that's a different problem if that happens. So, but yeah, if you're wondering why I didn't do those fields yet, that's because they were planted a day later, so they are at least a day behind on their growth. And as you saw on the mini map when we started earlier, they weren't as dark green as these are. So we'll just get things parked up. Disconnect this time so that once again, you know what, I need to clean these things up. So let me get things set again, repaired, fueled, cleaned, because at this point there shouldn't be that much going on. And I know it's been a while on some of these, so I just want to keep my equipment in good working order. Alright, so the fuel is done, which is what that little beep was. I'll just get this cleaned up and then we'll park it. So yeah, happy to hear about opinions from anybody. If you guys have had some experience with herbicide, with precision farming and seasons, if there's some other method that I haven't tried that actually is what I should be doing, because as I said, I'm kind of chasing this one, and it's gotten past the point of being a fun challenge to just, now I just kind of want to solve it and be done. It's getting frustrating, honestly. So, happy to hear any ideas, and then we might be able to try them out. And this is as good a place as any. I was kind of trying to park it where I had gotten it, but I'm like, plow's not going anywhere, and this way we're out of the way and off to the side, because this tends to be a piece of equipment that's not used that often. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll go get our tanker, put him away. Also, same thing, clean and repair, because I think we definitely need fuel. We're down a quarter tank, and the truck's getting up to 10% wear, which isn't terrible, but definitely something we want to work on. So get in here where I can fuel. Oops. Yeah, I'm thinking it's more the truck that's dirty. The tanker's moved 3 or 4 times, so wasn't a lot of dirt on it. I'll probably still spray it just in case, but just the truck that's been around with seeding and trying to collect things here and there. So all right. that all taken care of. Park it back over at the side of the shed. Again, nice and tight, so in case we have to do something like what we did the other day and drive over here, that we've got as much room as possible to fit. And because there's no cables, we can disconnect and be done. So thanks once again for joining me here at Misty Hills. Hope you've had a good time. Hope it's been entertaining. Maybe you've even learned something. Please subscribe, and we will see you next time.